Yeah.
Okay, Chad, did you have any other updates you wanted to go over right now? Because I think we're about to head to Texas, see how our your favorite Senator Ted Cruz is faring down with Garrett. Garrett, I'm gonna butcher your last name. Fulce, Fulce,
I've been called
from
a lot
this.
worse.
I know I butchered it on your own podcast, you know you have the right to be mad for me now getting it wrong twice. But from the Seeing Red podcast, Garrett, you and I had a great conversation a couple weeks ago, and thank you so much for joining us tonight. Baby, you want to move over to like the Texas map just so we can kind of look and see what's going on. Garrett, what's happening on the ground in Texas?
Texas is a blowout for Republicans, it looked like so far. Right now, we have early voting data come in. We're one of the states that can start counting early. We have a whole process called the early ballot boards in every county, and it's a whole process. But where you have the county GOP and the county Dems like overseeing the whole process, and there's different people being appointed to the board. Harris County is only going 6 points for the Democrats. That's terrible for Kamala. Fort Bend County, where I live, is a 2 point or 1.6 point early voting lead. We're expecting that to be about 85% of the early vote or of the total vote. There are a number of races where Republicans didn't think they'd have a chance or where we were pretty worried about, like county sheriff, which is a countywide race. The county sheriff candidate is up by 0.6 points after early voting in Fort Bend County. These are things I'm seeing now. What we're not seeing are a bunch of the rural counties. Texas has 254 counties, ranging from Loving County that has 120 registered voters to Harris County that has over 2 million, right? So you have a lot of variation in like what's coming in and how fast, and just whether or not the county, like if it's raining someplace, they might not have internet and can't upload it to the Secretary of State. So we have a lot of stuff going on. Like if you look at Texas, you really have to look at the big cities and you have to look at the suburbs. And what's coming in right now are the big cities and the suburbs. And Ted Cruz still has a lead. And he's not even banking all the votes that are coming from the roll, where he's going to win by 50 points. I'm expecting Cruz to win by, my prediction was 7 points with a high of kind of 9. And it looks like I was right in that Trump is going to beat him by about 3 points of whatever his vote ends up being.
Yeah, that's kind of what we're seeing here in Florida as well. You know, a state that really Harris did not throw very much money at, not very much staff. And Trump, I haven't seen the latest results because we've been trying to jump across the map. We just talked to Pennsylvania and New Jersey. And, you know, so but I think we're trending towards at least an 8 point win here in Florida. And also, it looks like Rick Scott, they've called Rick Scott already, winning re-election. Not a big surprise there, but he's by a similar margin, maybe 7 points instead of 8. But a lot of people predicted him to be a 3 point below 3 point margin below Trump, and it seems like he's kind of hanging tough in there with Trump just because of the number of undervotes on the Democrat side in that race. So I imagine maybe the same thing's happening there in Texas, where Allred didn't make the sale to maybe he made the sale to the base, but he didn't make the sale to just barely left of center voters. What are your thoughts?
Actually, I think he did.
Okay.
And Allred spent a ton of money. And I'm talking, my wife is a lover of reality TV and a lover of
Me too.
like things like the Today Show, which means I'm a lover of reality TV and of things like the Today Show.
What's your wife's favorite reality TV show?
Over the past 2 weeks was like a Colin Allred or a Ted Cruz ad. They spent a ton of money here, especially on Bravo. That's where the reality show was. She's a big Real Housewives, Below Deck, et al. Fan. But so there's a bunch of ads going to those places, big on abortion, and it does not seem to have rung home the way it did in 2022. Texas didn't do great when it came to we underperformed in 2022. Because we didn't really know how Dobbs was going to impact things, and things just didn't quite. We kind of, kept the course when we were expecting to win some seats in the state house. I think we're probably going to end up winning a couple seats in the state house. The ones I was most worried about, we seem to be blowing out in early voting, like by good margins, like 15, 20 points in a couple cases. And so I haven't even dug into the ones that might be marginal. There might be some dim held seats that we weren't expecting to do well in that we might be overperforming in. We might have some huge Republican margins going into Texas coming in the next session.
Gary, Garrett, in 2020, what do you have any data on the percentage of early voting in Texas compared to today? I think we're trending. I mean, at least here in Florida, is that the early voting in Florida, we're picking up steam as a Republican Party. I think we're pushing 65. Is Texas also? What's your situation? What's your feel for that?
So, COVID, there were some court decisions that allowed early voting to be extended by, I think, like 33%. It ended up being 3 weeks instead of 2 weeks. So the early voting data, also COVID, I think we ended up being just shy of or right at our early voting from 2020. And we're expecting to have less than we had from normal election day voting. I think we're expecting as a percentage for our turnout to be lower than 2020, but we increased our voter rolls by like 3 million since then. So we're expecting a larger raw vote.
Fantastic. And Garrett, I heard some chatter about Ted Cruz getting angry with Mitch McConnell. Did you hear anything in Texas? There was a little bit of a money spat where.
Yeah. There's always that kind of thing that's going to pop up when people are starting to get anxious about what's happening at the end of the day. I think the Cruz campaign wanted there to be more of a national focus on the campaign since a lot of Democrat dollars were coming in. I ended up seeing slightly more all-red ads in a swing state, in a swing house, not really a swing household, but one that's effectively targeted as one. So I can understand the consternation. But with Cornyn up for re-election in 2 years and also up as one of the major candidates for Senate majority, I don't know how much of the Cruz consternation was more jockeying in that leadership race.
Yeah, that's how.
Which is a whole other conversation.
Obviously, we're not rooting for Cruz. We're rooting for Scott. But do you think it's a little selfish of Cruz to sit there and demand money from the party when basically Cruz is going to win that race? But now we're taking, a good dollar in Texas, and we should probably put the good dollar in maybe, I don't know, Michigan, Ohio. How do you feel about that?
There is always that, but you have to keep in mind that when you looked at just like the raw 2020 map of where Democrats could possibly expand, which they would have to expand to hold the majority if they lost the presidency, which looks like I hope will happen. Then Texas was the best opportunity because it was like a +5 for Trump, and Cruz only won it by like 2 points, 2 point something last time, 2.3. So that was their best opportunity to expand from just a raw kind of percentage standpoint. Unfortunately for them, Texas is a very big state with a bunch of people. And contrary to the signs that say don't California my Texas, all the people moving here from if you look at the macro data from all the polling, the people moving to Texas from California or from New York, I'm sure it's the same thing in Florida. They're the Republicans. They're the ones fleeing, the refugees. They're going to a conservative state, not because of some job opportunity, because they just need to get the hell out of the hellscape that is those liberal wastelands.
Yeah, everybody's welcome in Florida. You're more than welcome, but just please don't bring your politics. So,
right.
Yeah.
Well, unless your politics are conservative, and it's one of those things where if you look at it, it ends up being about a 60-40 or 2-to-1 split, where it's Republicans coming in. So yeah, you don't want the liberal policies coming in, but you have a bunch of Republicans coming in, and I think it's like, don't bring in your old allegiances. Let's figure out how we do things.
Yeah, you moved here for a
reason.
Works. Yeah, you moved here for a reason.
And keep voting red up and down the ballot.
Absolutely.
So, I think Texas is going to be a big one, and it's looking to me, as just from the numbers I'm seeing from the early voting data and from what's popping up, that we're going to have at least a split government, if not an outright trifecta at the federal level.
Well, from your mouth to God's ears, right? And so I'm looking at some. I know that you're a Texas expert, but we all kind of play this game of I'm looking at Ohio. Of course, Trump looks like he's winning by about 4 points, but the U.S. Senate race there is, I don't want to say virtually tied, but just as a raw vote total, 50,000 down for the Republican. So it seems like that could trend.
Yeah.
Interestingly,
Sherrod Brown, underestimate Sherrod Brown at your own risk.
No, I agree.
That's my hottest take on Ohio is like Sherrod Brown is a fighter.
No, I've predicted that he would win re-election. I actually wrote during the summer in my Substack that I thought that Brown would be strong enough that could be a sneaky win. Ohio could be a sneaky win for Harris, just because the tail could wag the dog because of his strength, and certainly he spent, I think, as much as almost any U.S. Senate candidate in the country this year. So, right now in Pennsylvania, it looks like a lot of blue counties. That's what's kind of interesting to me is either early votes or blue counties are really coming in. We're looking at central Pennsylvania. None of the red counties are through that area are reporting. We have Philadelphia that are not completely done in any of these places, of course, but but they're showing 2-to-1 margins in both the presidential and the U.S. Senate race. So I don't think that we can trust any of those results there as of yet.
I did like Bernie Moreno when he spoke at the RNC. I thought he was well spoken. If there's we're putting up good candidates out there. So in Ohio, and I think in Pennsylvania, we'll put up a good candidate in Pennsylvania. I like our candidate better than the last candidate, which we lost.
Exactly. So Garrett, what other predictions do you have for tonight? What's your prediction on the date that we find out the winner?
If we don't know by tonight, I think we'll know by pretty early tomorrow morning. I don't think we're going to be stuck in we just need to wait on one state to know.
I tend to agree with you. I think the herd of.
I think. So that's where I'm at with it. I think we'll probably know something tomorrow, and I think it's looking like it'll be a Trump victory. If that's the thing, if it keeps trending Trump the way I'm seeing it trending Trump, then maybe the Democratic machinations behind the scenes will try and halt it and do their own sort of election rigging.
I think
election denial.
I think the only way they do it is Pennsylvania. I mean, the only state that is so easily corruptible is Pennsylvania.
Right.
I mean, I think Wisconsin kind of got their stuff in order. I mean, Jamie, I don't know but I'm scared about Pennsylvania.
Yeah, I am too. Will you click on Virginia there and see what we're looking at here?
Numbers look good out of Virginia. But it's only 53. But it's only
Virginia with 2 million cast.
Is anything coming in from Northern Virginia though? What is Arlington and Alexandria and Fairfax?
Yeah, I don't know that we're drilling down in this map that we're looking at into county by county data on Virginia. But I mean, there are certainly results from Alexandria.
There was light turnout at some places that usually have some stuff out the door. And I don't know. I don't think Virginia changed their early voting laws too much. There's kind of more of a habit of voting on election day. So if you're not seeing stuff on election day, then it's not good for Democrats, especially if you're not seeing those lines in Northern Virginia. And that's my experience as somebody who lived there for 5 years. And you have to run up the margins in Arlington, Alexandria, Fairfax, et cetera, or you're just not going to win as a Democrat. And Youngkin and all the work the GOP has done in that state, I think might be making it more of a purple state for the next few years.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, if Trump loses, let's say by 2 or 3 points out of Virginia, I think we're in good shape. We're in good shape.
Oh, if Trump loses Virginia by 3 points, he won the popular vote by 50.
Yeah.
That's great. So you want him to win it because then he probably wants some other states that we weren't even thinking about. And that's what can happen in the state. That's what can happen. And it's why I'm not terribly worried about Pennsylvania because they might do some shenanigans.
Shenanigans.
Is if things are going that way and there are shenanigans in Pennsylvania, one, it'll show us just exactly the lengths they're willing to go because they're going to do it in a thing that doesn't matter. And two, we're going to win in places where we didn't expect to win up and down the ballot because like there was no money spent there. It was just the basically the vibes and the passive national dollars that turned it out.
Yeah,
And that's when you know that you have a real wave election.
Yeah, and it's like Jamie and I were talking in the beginning of the show. You look at New Hampshire. So if New Hampshire goes at least close with under 2 points, I mean that's just like wow. The it's starting to change. You know, the tide is moving into the red direction in a lot of places that it wasn't always there. I mean, Iowa's another one of those where we had that Jan Selsa or something like that, the pollster. But
Yeah, the Ann Seltzer poll.
yeah, so I'm curious to see. I mean, what was that? Was that just like, ooh, let's get voter suppression out, or
So Ann Seltzer
outline?
bucks the trend and does not weight based off of a likely voter sample. My understanding is that she does it based off of a registered sample. Now, she's had far better luck over the past 20 years than most people have doing that. And she does a pretty good job of capturing stuff. You also got to keep in mind that Iowa's a really kind of weird state. It's historically, for 30 years, it had Chuck Grassley as one senator and Tom Harkin as another.
Yeah.
Like a
Pretty incredible.
Reagan conservative and a FDR like liberal. They have like what's referred to as farmer populism from the Midwest. That's kind of popular. It's how Daschle of all people won in South Dakota for so long. You have that kind of ethos of a whatever else, and you also have a lot of federal dollars coming in for subsidies for farming. So there's a lot of minutia for people who end up understanding Iowa. And then you had the abortion stuff, and Iowa just passed a abortion ban via the legislature within the past few months. So unlike other states which have kind of pushed that out of their system and kind of got it out and got it resolved with where the state wants it to be, more or less, Iowa's still in the throes of that, and you I think saw a good reflection from a lot of folks of that kind of Dobbs abortion debate kind of rebounding, and getting some stuff from those suburban white women from like Des Moines, Ames, Iowa City, Cedar Rapids, etc.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. We're looking at kind of a Google map here, and it's funny because they have New Hampshire as too close to call, which is a blue state. But then, the early results in Missouri and Kansas are, as you speculate, early votes probably. And, they have them kind of shaded blue, Harris up, too close to call. And, it's just not as you said, as election day is, a lot of these folks, and probably about half our audience is from Florida. And, we have so many ways to vote early or mail. And some of these states are, just early voting and election day voting and not as many opportunities for mail. And, and so you're seeing Democrats vote early, Republicans generally vote election day. So it takes a little while for those results to come in. So, like I said, just the very first results, but the map is on that Google map at least, which is a really unfair representation of what's likely to happen the rest of the night.
Well, and I think it's one of those things where you have to have a little bit of a grain of salt until you start getting some big numbers in. That's why I was texting folks when the Fort Bend numbers, my county numbers came in. I was like, is this all of early voting or is this whatever? Because if it's just some, I don't want to, whatever. I was like, no, this is all early voting. They released all early voting at 7, or they tried to, and they did it this year. And so that way you at least have that understanding. Like you said, when it comes to early voting, there are different types of people, and it ends up being kind of a partisan split that's slightly different when it comes to who's voting early or who's voting by mail. And I think that's really important if you're looking at a state to see if they have early voting, if they have vote by mail. Because like you said, you're seeing some small numbers out of Kentucky and out of Kansas and out of Missouri. I'm not sure what their early voting laws are, but if they are a vote by mail or a absentee in person state, then they're going to have a lot lower numbers, and those folks are going to probably tend to be Democrat, which is why you're going to see those numbers. But also in both of those places, if those numbers came out of big counties early, and none of the other people have reported anything, because those numbers look pretty small when you kind of
right now
mouse over 'em.
Alexandria has 20,000 votes for Harris and 6,000, almost 7,000 for Trump. So
In Virginia?
a long way to
Yeah.
go there.
Yeah.
I mean, and that's hard to know because Alexandria, like the city of Alexandria, is not very large, but it probably has probably 100 or 200, 150,000 people.
Yeah.
So I don't know what proportion of their voting populace that is.
Right.
So, but it's just those things to look at, and just always take things with a grain of salt. I mean, if you're looking at TV networks calling stuff, just keep in mind they have political scientists and data statisticians looking at this to make those calls. I know a few of them personally, and they're really smart folks, and they're wanting to make the right call, and they make sure they're pretty confident in it, and they want to be overconfident in it. But they're going to be waiting to see just where the votes are coming from to kind of plug it into their system to see what it is. But from what I'm seeing, I'm pretty happy right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're still at just a little bit more than 1 million votes in Pennsylvania, a little bit more than 460,000 in Michigan. So a long way to go in some of these states.
Yeah. A long night for folks of counting and looking and whatever else. Will kind of tout on Texas a little bit. We have early voting. We have, I think, 11 days of early voting. It's 1 weekend and 2 full weeks, so it's a Monday to a Friday. So whatever that is, 12 days of early voting. We take off a few days so people can finish the count, and so that's ready to go on Election Day. And then we have Election Day on the Tuesday, of course. We also have mail-in voting for military and elder and people over the age of 65. As well as people who send in an affidavit saying they won't be in the county for the entire period of early voting and Election Day, and they send an address that's outside the county for it to be mailed to.
Well, Garret, we've got our
Texas has a good system.
We've got our next guest. I want to thank you, number one, for having me on your podcast, and number two, for joining us tonight for election night. I know it's a busy night for you. Lots of client calls and things like that for you tonight. And so I really appreciate you carving out some time and joining us.
Yeah, I'm glad you're on our team, Garret.
Thanks for having me.
All right, thanks, Garret. We'll talk to you soon.
Hey guys, I just want to bring to your attention that we have 1 hour left
I told you it
of
would
this
go
live
quick.
podcast.
So what? We've been through
1
3 hours
hour.
of it. And,
Remember, Christine said we could go to midnight if we wanted to.
Oh boy, I don't know.
Are we rolling the voters?
The unfiltered voters.
Yeah.
We do have to do that.
So we have if we go to John now in Kansas, it's we'll have a 5 or 10 minute break afterwards.
Okay, perfect.
That we can run those voters after. Christina, is that okay? We'll try to get through John in 10 minutes and.
Yeah, well, I don't know if you're asking me, but
Hey, John, are you there?
I am here.
Hey, John, thanks for joining us. John Swank from the Brutally Honest podcast in Kansas. So some very early results. Looks like coming in from Topeka. If you right this second, probably a total of less than 500,000 votes statewide, and Harris showing a little bit of a lead. What's your take on what's going on, and is Harris going to hold on to that lead?
Kamala Harris is not going to hold on to that lead here in the state of Kansas. The way Kansas works is you're going to get Shawnee County reporting early. Shawnee County is where Topeka, the capital, is, as you were saying. And they, for whatever reason, can report earlier than every other county in this state for some unbeknownst reason to any of us who live here. Even Johnson County, which is Kansas City, and the suburbs of that area, which is a much larger population, takes longer to report. That's going to go heavily towards Kamala as well. But our other big city, Wichita, which is in Sedgwick County, that county can go blue. It vacillates back and forth, but usually it's close enough that it keeps everything balanced. And then later you're going to see all the rural counties from the West, and they're going to go anywhere from 60 to 90% towards Trump, and it swings. We're usually a plus 12 to plus 16 red state in presidential elections, and then we elect Democrat governors for some reason.
Yeah, exactly. So, I kind of threw that out there just because it's kind of a fun talking point, and we're looking at the Google map here, and the Google map has, anybody who's ahead, even if they're, 25,000 votes in, they'll kind of shade it with a little bit of, toss-up status, too early to call status, and then the color. And so I was just, for some of our viewers, it was looking blue, and I think they were kind of looking at it like, wow, what's going on in Kansas? And thank you for your expertise to say what's going on is exactly what goes on every single time. And that is these blue counties are reporting early to try to pretend like they have momentum, to try to encourage those folks in Arizona and Nevada to keep voting.
Yeah. Isn't it funny how...
Yeah, look up. Oh, go ahead.
No, it's funny how, like, Topeka blue can get their votes in, but Philadelphia can't get their votes until 5 days later.
Or yeah,
you know what I mean? Yeah. I mean, how is that possible?
Yeah, everything west of Manhattan, it's amazing they have electricity, guys. So
you mean
just there's
the
nothing
little
out
apple?
there.
The little
takes
apple?
a long time to get anything done. I'm pretty sure, like the Amish, they transport the ballots with horse and buggy to get it in.
Well, we like to joke that people who are not from Florida think you can stand at Cinderella's Castle in Orlando and see the Atlantic Ocean and the Gulf of Mexico, but you have to hop across alligators to get to either one. And that's certainly not the case as well. So what else is going on in Kansas that we should know about tonight?
Actually, we have no ballot initiatives or really much of anything. Nothing is even looking like it might be a surprise. Actually, I live in the district that I think might have the most surprising results. I hope I'm wrong, but I've never seen as many Democrat signs in my district as I have until this cycle. Now, I live right outside of Topeka, so my state districts, they're usually like 2-to-1 Republican, but I don't think we're going to see that kind of ratio this time. I mean, I could actually see our state representative losing his election.
Oh, wow. Well, what are...
I hope I'm wrong, but it doesn't look normal. That's
what
for
is
sure.
your take from what you're seeing from around the country, from what we've seen so far in places like Virginia, which seems to be trending a little towards Trump. North Carolina seems to be trending back towards Trump. Pennsylvania, what are your thoughts on all those states?
At a national level, this is very surprising to me. I pride myself on my ability to predict politics quite well. I predicted the Joe Biden-Kamala ticket well before maybe anybody except for Josie the Redhead Libertarian. I saw that coming from a mile away. I'm good at this stuff. I did not see what's happening tonight. I mean, in certain demographics, like Latino men, you are seeing like 30-point swings towards Trump. This is wild. Now, it's only in localized areas, but still, you compare those counties and those demographics in those counties to 2020, you are seeing insane swings. This is a referendum if I've ever seen one. It's certainly looking like it in the minority communities. I don't see it in the white community, but I kind of expected that with us because we have our white liberal women who just really like abortion.
It's a shame that we're going to choose the leader of the free world based on one issue that doesn't have anything to do with our economy or foreign policy at all, and how much the mainstream media swept under the rug that 10,000 North Koreans have now joined the fight with Russia in Ukraine. What's your take on how these two campaigns finished the race, whether they were running running through the tape, or did they pull up at the end? And what's your take on Harris's final push to be kind of seen as a unifier these last 72 hours, and Trump's last 72 hours kind of being a more of a she's not qualified.
Yeah, I mean, just to your first point about the North Korea thing, as a veteran, I always follow this kind of stuff. And to be honest, those of us that have kind of been over there and done those things, we're pretty used to the media not really giving a crap about what happens to us. So no big deal there. But they only like to report on the foreign conflicts that benefit them financially. But when it comes to Kamala's campaign, I actually think she made a huge mistake at the end. I don't know why she would spend her last 72 hours going completely antithetical to everything she's done up to that
I
point.
agree.
You can't scream Hitler, 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 and then suddenly be like, I'm going to bring all of you guys who support Hitler over to my side. That's completely illogical. Why she thought that would work, or whoever is advising her, because we know she can't think, thought that would work, I don't know. It was a very poor choice, in my opinion. Donald Trump, to be honest, in like the last 2 weeks even, I'd say he was just out there having fun. That is when Trump is at his best, in my opinion, as well. But he didn't even look like he was concerned. He was campaigning as though he was just throwing parties at all his rallies, having fun. And that works for him. And I think it's done well. Kamala's campaign just absolutely collapsed, I'd say, within the last 3 weeks to a month. It just fell apart.
Well, I think he was out relating to people, and that's what people need to see from Trump. They need to see that human side of him, and I think that's what's happened. Like you said, that he's been out there having fun and showing a different side to him that the media has never shown. So people are finally seeing it.
I also think her
I
president
agree
was
with
terrible.
that. Yes.
Yeah, like Elma Fudd was a terrible pick. So I think she should have picked Shapiro and rolled the dice with the Jewish vote or the Muslim vote. But I thought that was a terrible pick, taking the guy from Waltz. So
Yeah.
Without a doubt, Shapiro would have been a far superior pick.
Yeah.
That certainly would have helped her seal up Pennsylvania. If I remember right, I think he won his gubernatorial race by like 8 points. I mean, he's well liked in the state. I don't know why she thought that picking Walz over him was a good idea for a multitude of reasons. But the funniest thing about it is the Muslim community didn't even respond well to her because she hasn't gone pro-Palestinian enough. The Michigan Muslim vote is still a concern for that campaign and has been the whole time. Rashida Tlaib, have you heard from her lately?
We have not.
It's because she knows. She knows.
Yeah. Well, John, hey, number one, thank you for having me on your podcast, and thank you for joining us tonight. We really appreciate your insights, and we're moving on to we've got one video to show, and then we've got another guest joining us. So we just really appreciate you. Any closing remarks?
I do want to say that we are getting comments in our video, and they are saying, I really like this guy. He is brutally honest.
Oh, nice, John. Look at you bringing in the comments. That's the way his
name did
podcast
indeed come
goes.
from people who know me personally.
Yeah, that's his podcast, Brutally Honest. If you like podcasts, and sign up to listen to him, because he's that's what you see is what you get, right,
Perfect.
John?
Typically. I appreciate you guys having me on. Thank you.
Hey, thank you, John. We'll talk to you soon.